Pack your body bags. We're going on a slaycation. Tim, what's a slaycation?
A slaycation is a murder or mysterious death that happens while you're on vacation.
If you like to mix humor with horror and travel,
join me, Kim Davis,
and me, Adam Tex Davis,
and me, Jerry Colbert,
as we look at the craziest slaycations that will have you asking, what the F is wrong with people? You can find Slaycation on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Just remember, getting away can be murder.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. In the vast expanse of North America, where the Great Lakes carve their presence into the continent's midsection, lies a land of dense forests, crystal-clear lakes, and a rich tapestry of folklore. This is Wisconsin, a state shaped by glaciers and defined by its natural beauty. But beneath the surface of its picturesque landscapes and friendly communities lies a tale as old as the forests. The legend of the Hodag. To understand the Hodag, you gotta understand Wisconsin. And to do that, it starts with the land itself. Long before humans set foot in that region, massive ice sheets sculpted the terrain, carving out valleys, depositing hills, and leaving behind countless lakes and streams. Particularly the Laurentide ice sheet, which covered enormous swaths of North America beginning 2.5 million years ago, with a small bit of it still hanging around today on Baffin Island. As this ice sheet, or glacier, retreated at the end of the last ice age, more than 12,000 years ago, it left in its wake a landscape primed for the lush forests that would come to define the region. All of those lakes, the vast wetlands, along with the irregular landscape that characterize so many areas of eastern and particularly northern Wisconsin, are a direct result of the retreating Laurentide ice sheet. And that retreat marked the beginning of a new era for the land that would become Wisconsin. As the climate warmed, vegetation began to take hold. First came the tundra plants, hardy species adapted to those cold conditions. Gradually, as temperatures continued to rise, spruce and fir trees appeared, followed by the pine forests. And by 8,000 years ago, the landscape had transformed into a mix of coniferous and deciduous forests, very similar to what we see in parts of northern Wisconsin today. This changing environment attracted a diverse array of wildlife. Mastodons and woolly mammoths roamed this land, along with giant beavers and other now extinct megafauna. As these species died out, they were replaced by animals more familiar to modern eyes. White-tailed deer, black bears, wolves, and countless species of birds and fish. And it was in this rich, diverse ecosystem that the first human inhabitants of Wisconsin would make their home. Welcome back to The Devil Within. You're listening to the Wood Sprite of Wisconsin. Those first human inhabitants of the land were the Native American tribes, who called it home for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence suggests that people first arrived in what is now Wisconsin around 10,000 years ago, following the glacial retreat. These early inhabitants were nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons to take advantage of different food sources. Over time, distinct cultures and tribes emerged. The Ojibwe, the Menominee, the Ho-Chunk, and the Potawatomi were among the major tribes that inhabited Wisconsin in the centuries before European contact. These peoples developed rich cultures, deeply connected to the land and its resources. They hunted in the forests, they fished in the lakes and the rivers, and eventually began to cultivate crops such as corn, beans, and squash. As we know, these indigenous tribes had a profound respect for the natural world, viewing themselves as part of the land rather than seeing the land as something to make bend to their will. And this worldview was reflected in their spiritual beliefs and practices, which often involved animistic concepts. The idea that spirits or souls existed not just in humans, but in animals, plants, and even inanimate objects. It was from this spiritual foundation that many of Wisconsin's earliest legends and folklore emerged. The Ojibwe, for instance, told stories of the Wendigo, a terrifying creature of the northern forests with an insatiable hunger for human flesh. The Menominee spoke of the Manituak, spirit beings that could take various forms and often interacted with humans. These stories, as we know by now, weren't just for entertainment. They were ways that the people explained natural phenomena. They also used these stories to teach moral lessons, and they were told in a way where it was easy to pass down the cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. So they lived in harmony with the forests, lakes, and wildlife for thousands of years, developing a deep understanding of the land's rhythms and resources. They passed down stories of spirits and creatures that inhabited the natural world around them, laying the groundwork for the legends that would later capture the imagination of European settlers. So it was into this world of pristine wilderness and ancient lore that the first European explorers and fur traders ventured in the 17th century. The first recorded European to set foot in what is now Wisconsin was Jean Nicolet, a French explorer who arrived on the shores of Green Bay in 1634. Nicolet had been sent by Samuel de Champlain, the founder of New France, and he was tasked with finding a water route to China. While he didn't find that fabled Northwest Passage, Nicolet's journey marked the beginning of European involvement in Wisconsin. In the decades that followed, French voyagers and coureurs des bois, runners of the woods, paddled their canoes along the intricate network of waterways, marveling at the abundance of wildlife and seemingly endless expanse of forest. These men were the vanguard of the fur trade, which would dominate the region's economy for the next 2 centuries. The fur traders established relationships with the native tribes, exchanging European goods for valuable beaver pelts and other furs. This interaction led to a blending of cultures, as French and Native American traditions began to intermingle. The voyagers, spending long months in the wilderness, began to adopt some of the beliefs and superstitions of their native trading partners. They too began to hear whispers of strange creatures lurking in the shadows of the woods. Now, one of the most significant impacts of the fur trade was the introduction of firearms to Native American tribes. This technology dramatically changed hunting practices and intertribal warfare. It also had a profound effect on the wildlife populations, as more efficient hunting methods led to the serious depletion of some species, particularly the beaver. As the 18th century progressed, control of the Wisconsin region passed from France to Great Britain following the French and Indian War. The British continued the fur trade, but also began to eye the region for its potential for settlement and resource extraction. This period saw increased tensions between European powers, Native American tribes, and American colonists, culminating in the American Revolution. Then, following American independence, Wisconsin became part of the Northwest Territory. The new United States government saw the region as a valuable asset, both for its natural resources and as a buffer against British influence from Canada. This led to a series of treaties with Native American tribes. Yeah, those ones that were unfair and coercive, which gradually ceded more and more land to the United States. As the 19th century dawned, a new wave of settlers arrived in Wisconsin. They came from the eastern states and from across the Atlantic. Germans, Scandinavians, Irish, all seeking a better life in this land of opportunity. The promise of cheap, fertile land drew thousands of immigrants to Wisconsin, dramatically changing the demographic and cultural landscape of the region. These settlers faced tons of challenges as they sought to tame the wilderness. They cleared forests, established farms, they built towns. The work was backbreaking and dangerous. Winters were harsh, summers were brutally hot, and the threat of disease was everywhere. But the settlers persevered, driven by the hope of building a better life for themselves and their descendants. Yet, even as civilization encroached upon the wilderness, the forests of northern Wisconsin remained a place of mystery and wonder. The settlers brought with them their own folklore and superstitions, which began to blend with the native legends they encountered. Stories of strange creatures and supernatural occurrences circulated around campfires and in taverns, growing with each retelling. It was in this context, in the small town of Rhinelander, in the heart of Wisconsin's Northwoods, that the legend of the Hodag was born. The year was 1893, and the lumber industry was in full swing. Rhinelander, like many towns in northern Wisconsin, had sprung up around the sawmills that processed the region's valuable pine trees. It was a bustling community of hardworking loggers, merchants, and their families. And the lumber industry completely transformed the landscape of northern Wisconsin. Vast tracts of old-growth forest were felled, processed, and shipped to growing cities across the Midwest. The work was dangerous and demanding, requiring strength, skill, and no small amount of courage. Loggers faced the constant threat of injury or death from falling trees, icy conditions, and the dangerous, unregulated equipment that they had to use. Maybe it was the perilous nature of their work, or the isolation of the lumber camps deep in the forest. Whatever the reason, these loggers became particularly susceptible to tales of the supernatural. Stories of strange sights and sounds in the woods were common currency in logging camps and lumber towns across the north. Among the residents of Rhinelander was a man named Eugene Shepard, a timber cruiser by trade and a prankster by nature. Shepard was known for his tall tales and elaborate hoaxes, but none would capture the public's imagination quite like the Hodag. One day, Shepard emerged from the woods with an incredible story. He claimed to have encountered a fearsome creature unlike anything he had ever seen before. According to Shepard, the Hodag was a beast with the head of a frog, the grinning face of a giant elephant, thick, short legs set off by huge claws, the back of a dinosaur, and a long tail with a spear at the end. He described it as 7 feet long and covered in thick black fur with glowing green eyes and horns that protruded from its head. Shepard's description of the Hodag was a masterful blend of the familiar and the fantastic. It incorporated elements of real animals known to inhabit the Wisconsin forests, the fur of a bear, the horns of a bull, with more outlandish features that sparked the imagination. The result was a creature that seemed just plausible enough to be believable, yet strange enough to be utterly terrifying.
Pack your body bags. We're going on a slaycation. Tim, what's a slaycation?
A slaycation is a murder or mysterious death that happens while you're on vacation.
If you like to mix humor with horror and travel,
Join me, Kim Davis,
And me, Adam Tex Davis.
and me, Jerry Colbert,
as we look at the craziest slaycations that will have you asking, what the F is wrong with people? You can find Slaycation on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Just remember, getting away can be murder.
The loggers and townspeople were captivated by Shepard's tale. Many dismissed it as yet another of his fanciful stories, but others weren't so sure. The dense forests of northern Wisconsin still held many secrets, and who was to say that such a creature couldn't exist in its shadowy depths? Shepard, sensing the growing interest in his creation, decided to take his hoax to the next level. He announced that he and a group of brave men had captured a live Hodag after a fierce battle in the woods. To prove his claim, he constructed an elaborate display featuring a taxidermied, quote, Hodag, which in reality was a cleverly disguised wooden sculpture covered in ox hides and adorned with cattle horns and steel teeth. But the Hodag exhibit became a sensation. People came from far and wide to see the fearsome creature, paying 10 cents for the privilege. Shepard regaled visitors with tales of the Hodag's ferocity and its habits, claiming it was the last of its kind, a relic from prehistoric times that had somehow survived in the isolated forests of the Northwoods. Shepard's hodag was more than just a simple prank or money-making scheme. It was a brilliant work of folk art, a physical manifestation of the fears, hopes, and imagination of a community that existed on the edge of the wilderness. The hodag embodied the spirit of the frontier, wild, unpredictable, and full of possibility. For months, the hodag was the talk of Rhinelander and beyond. Newspapers picked up the story, spreading the legend across the state and even to neighboring regions. But like all good things, the hodag hoax eventually came to an end. As the exhibit's popularity grew, it caught the attention of scientists from the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. Intrigued by reports of this supposedly prehistoric creature, they announced their intention to send a team to Rhinelander to study the hodag. Faced with the prospect of professional scrutiny, Shepard was forced to admit that the whole thing had been an elaborate prank. He confessed to creating the hodag as a bit of fun, never expecting it to gain such widespread attention. The revelation caused quite an uproar, with many people feeling duped, while others still admired Shepard's creativity and showmanship. Yet, far from spelling the end of the hodag, Shepard's confession only served to cement its place in Wisconsin folklore. The people of Rhinelander, rather than being embarrassed by the hoax, embraced the hodag as a beloved local mascot. It became a symbol of the town's humor, creativity, and connection to the surrounding wilderness. In the years that followed, the legend of the hodag continued to grow and evolve. Local businesses adopted the creature as their mascot, and souvenir shops began selling hodag-themed merchandise. The local Rhinelander High School named its sports teams the Hodags, and a large fiberglass statue of the creature was erected in downtown Rhinelander, becoming a popular tourist attraction. The hodag's influence extended beyond Rhinelander as well. It became a part of Wisconsin's broader folklore, joining other legendary creatures like the jackalope and Bigfoot in the pantheon of American cryptids. Campfire stories about hodag sightings became a staple of summer camps and hunting trips throughout northern Wisconsin, each retelling adding new details to the legend, keeping it alive and evolving for new generations. The enduring popularity of the hodag speaks to something deeper than mere local pride or tourist appeal. It reflects a fundamental human desire to believe in the extraordinary, to imagine that there are still mysteries to be uncovered in the world around us. In an age of scientific rationalism and technological advancement, the hodag represents a connection to a wilder, more magical past. Moreover, the hodag embodies the spirit of the Northwoods itself, resilient, unpredictable, and with a hint of mischief. It serves as a reminder of the region's logging heritage and the hardships faced by early settlers. In many ways, the hodag is a manifestation of the Northwoods' identity, encapsulating its history, its challenges, and its unique character. As the 20th century progressed, Wisconsin's economy and society underwent significant changes. The lumber industry, which had been the lifeblood of many northern communities, began to decline as the most accessible forests were depleted. Many towns that had sprung up around sawmills faced economic hardship as the timber companies moved on to other regions. In response, northern Wisconsin began to reinvent itself. Tourism emerged as a major industry, with people from Chicago, Milwaukee, and other urban centers flocking to the Northwoods for its natural beauty and recreational opportunities. The region's numerous lakes became popular destinations for fishing, boating, and summer homes. The vast forests, once valued primarily for their timber, were now appreciated for their scenic beauty and wildlife. And in this new economy, the hodag found a new role. It became a marketing tool, a quirky attraction that set Rhinelander and the surrounding area apart from other tourist destinations. Visitors could buy hodag souvenirs, take photos with hodag statues, and hear embellished tales of Hodag encounters from local guides. But it was more than just a tourist gimmick. It had become an integral part of the region's identity, a shared cultural touchstone that united longtime residents and newcomers alike. Children grew up hearing Hodag stories from their grandparents, keeping the legend alive across generations. The latter half of the 20th century brought new challenges to northern Wisconsin. The rise of environmental awareness led to conflicts between conservationists and those who favored continued resource extraction. The decline of manufacturing hit many communities hard, leading to economic struggles and population loss. But through it all, the Hodag remained a constant presence, a reminder of the region's resilience and ability to adapt. In times of hardship, the whimsical legend provided a much-needed source of levity and community pride. As the new millennium dawned, the Hodag found itself adapting once again to changing times. The internet and social media provided new platforms for sharing Hodag stories and images, introducing the legend to a global audience. Cryptozoology enthusiasts debated the Hodag's possible existence, alongside more famous creatures like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. In Rhinelander, the Hodag continued to evolve as a cultural icon. The city hosts an annual Hodag Country Festival, a popular music event that draws thousands of visitors. Local craft breweries created Hodag-themed beers, and artists incorporated the creature into murals and public art installations. The Hodag also took on new significance in educational contexts. Teachers used the legend as a tool to engage students in lessons about Wisconsin history, folklore, and critical thinking. The story of Eugene Shepard's hoax became a case study in media literacy, encouraging students to question extraordinary claims and seek evidence. In recent years, there has been a renewed interest in the cultural significance of the Hodag among scholars and folklorists. Some have drawn parallels between the Hodag and other mythical creatures from various cultures, seeing it as part of a universal human tendency to create legendary beings that reflect our relationship with the natural world. Others have examined the Hodag as a reflection of Wisconsin's environmental history. The creature's supposed habitat is the deep forests that speaks to the once vast wilderness that covered the state, while its fearsome reputation could be seen as an expression of the dangers and uncertainties faced by early settlers and loggers. The Hodag has also been interpreted through the lens of economic history. Its creation coincided with a period of rapid industrialization and urbanization in America, when many people felt a sense of loss for the disappearing frontier. The Hodag, with its prehistoric characteristics, could be seen as a symbolic link to a wilder, pre-industrial past. From a sociological perspective, the communal embrace of the Hodag hoax and its subsequent transformation into a beloved local symbol offers insights into the formation and maintenance of community identity. It demonstrates how a shared narrative, even one known to be fictional, can serve as a powerful unifying force. As Wisconsin continues to change and evolve in the 21st century, the Hodag remains a constant presence, adapting to new contexts while retaining its essential character. It serves as a bridge between past and present, linking modern Wisconsinites to their state's history of logging, settlement, and transformation of the land. In this era of globalization, when local cultures often struggle to maintain their distinctiveness, the Hodag stands as a proud assertion of Wisconsin's unique identity. It embodies the state's connection to its forests, its history of resourcefulness and hard work, and its capacity for imagination and humor. The Hodag's journey from a lumber camp tall tale to a widely recognized cultural icon mirrors Wisconsin's own evolution from a frontier territory to a modern state with a diverse economy and population. Yet through all these changes, the essence of the Hodag and of Wisconsin itself remains rooted in the land, the forests, and the waters that have shaped the region for millennia. Today, as visitors drive into Rhinelander, they're greeted by a sign proclaiming it the home of the Hodag. This simple statement encapsulates over a century of history, folklore, and community spirit. It speaks to the power of a good story to capture the imagination, and to the human need for connection to a place and to each other. The Hodag, in its various incarnations, from Eugene Shepard's original hoax all the way to modern-day mascot, has been a constant companion to the people of northern Wisconsin through times of prosperity and hardship. It's provided entertainment, sparked creativity, fostered community pride, and even driven economic activity. But maybe most importantly, the Hodag serves as a reminder of the magic that can be found in the everyday world around us. In an age when much of the planet has been mapped and cataloged, when scientific explanations exist for most natural phenomena, the Hodag represents the possibility that there are still mysteries out there, still wonders to be discovered. As long as there are forests in Wisconsin, as long as there are lakes reflecting the stars and rivers winding through the trees, there's going to be room for the Hodag in the hearts and minds of those who call the land home. It will continue to evolve, as all living legends do, adapting to new times and new tellings, but always remaining true to its Northwoods roots. In the end, the story of the Hodag is the story of Wisconsin itself, a tale of wilderness and civilization, of hard work and playful imagination, of respect for the past and hope for the future. It's a story written in the rings of the ancient trees, in the ripples on the countless lakes, in the footprints of generations who have called the land home. And so, as the sun sets over those forests of northern Wisconsin, casting long shadows between the pines, maybe you could pause and listen closely. Maybe, in the rustle of the leaves or the distant call of a loon, maybe you could hear an echo of something else, something ancient, something mysterious. Because in Wisconsin, the legend of the Hodag lives on, a testament to the enduring power of a tale well told, and a reminder that sometimes the most important truths are the ones that we choose to believe. Thanks for listening. Be sure you're following The Devil Within wherever you get your podcasts. You could also check out our socials at The Devil Within Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and now full episodes available on YouTube if you're more of a YouTube consumer. Until next time, stay safe out there. The Devil Within is an EVO production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. Written and produced by Brandon Morgan, executive produced by Danny Abelson. For The Devil Within, I'm your host, Brandon Morgan.